Hi, thank you for listening. Today I'm going to talk to you about why awareness is not enough to drive environmental behavior and what can be done about it. The reason why I decided to do this topic is because a lot of people, especially sustainability professionals, tend to believe that creating more awareness is the solution to creating more environmental impact. However, even if awareness is important, it plays just a small part in environmental behavior change. First of all, here's a brief intro about myself. I wear a lot of hats, but I tend to identify myself most with the identity of an environmental psychologist or environmental psychology researcher. I'm going to explain in a bit also what environmental psychology is and why it is important, why more people should understand it. Actually, today the topic is very much related to environmental psychology. So hopefully after watching this video, this lecture, you will be much more familiar with what environmental psychology is, how to use it for behavioral change, and how to create more effective solutions. So going back to what environmental psychology is, it's just a discipline that studies the influence that different environments, both physical and social, have on human behavior and mindset formation, and vice versa. Of course, by human behavior, we also understand, for example, learning outcome, work productivity. So anything human related, it is included here. This is one of the models that I use in my work a lot. So you can notice from this diagram that everything we do is at the intersection between the physical environment and social environment. So we wouldn't have home if we wouldn't have, so home wouldn't be home if we wouldn't have the physical environment where we live, but also our family around. And it also depends on the number of members that a family has and so on. So our office would not be an office without the physical space and our coworkers and so on. And a lot of people tend to believe that talent is related to personal ability. However, in environmental psychology, we believe that talent is much more linked with the environment that you are in, and the whether that environment and the learning methods, for example, are suitable for oneself. But I will not go into detail here. And then, of course, it is important also to look at what is actually the environment. A lot of people might say, oh, I want a better learning environment, working environment, living environment. But if you ask anyone, okay, so how do you achieve that? What is that environment? Many people would understand environment as a place or just people. However, it's a bit more complicated than that. And you can see in this diagram what are the actual elements that I consider in my work in analyzing different issues, or how do I perceive the environment. And you can see on the physical side we have space, colors, layout, light, sound, including foods and everything that basically surrounds us. And on the social side we have language, we have culture, our national conditions, media, news, people's relationships, and many other things that will influence our work productivity, personality, including mindset, and so on. Now, why, you would say, if it influences so much, why don't we know about it? Even though environmental psychology as a field has existed since the 70s. The reason for that is that this is a very academic field. So there's a lot of research in the academic world, and what you can see on the screen are some very reputable academic journals in the field. However, very little knowledge gets spilled out into the non-academic field. So that created this disconnection. A lot of people have no idea about what environmental psychology is and how to use it. Even if there would be a spill out, unfortunately, all these academic journals are very expensive. The average person would not necessarily afford to buy such journals, but also the language that the academic world uses is a bit more difficult to understand without having some academic background. So this will actually create this gap. So, looking into our topic for today, having understood a bit about what environmental psychology is, trying to understand how it can help us and understand why awareness is not enough. Actually, you'll notice that the environment plays a key role in this, and we will understand how. We will talk about the value action gap proposed by Blake in 1999, which is concerning because it has been discussed about it in 1999, yet we are in 2021, and there are still a lot of people that, especially sustainability professionals, that focus only on the awareness part, even though it has been proven that awareness is not enough. So I will not go into just reading the definition of what the value action gap is, but what I will go about and do is to explain how, what is in that gap. What are the barriers that different people might face when trying to move beyond awareness, going into behavior? And you can see in this image that we have, the so-called context in environmental psychology, that's the environment, and situational, physical, and so on. We will look at a list of influencing factors. I'm going to go quickly, just a quick read, but I'm going to explain each of them individually as we go. So we have the architecture of choice, or what we call flawed environmental design. I'll talk a bit about nudge, how to influence behavior through design. Too much trust that technology will solve the problem, or too much reliance on the government, feeling that they should change. The what can I do by myself mentality. Also, principle learned called learned helplessness. I'll go into more depth with that. It's actually quite important to keep in mind the way we understand climate change and how connected we feel to it. I'll go deeper into that. We also have the meaning behind the behavior, disconnection between awareness campaigns and NLP. For those who are not aware or familiar with NLP, I'm talking about the neuro linguistic programming. We also have this connection between business models and sustainability, and I will explain how, why that's important. And we also have NIMBY, or not in my backyard. And again, I will share a bit more about what that means and how it is reflected in what we do in a bit. So let's look at the architecture of choice, or flawed environmental design. So everything we do is, of course, space related. We go into grocery shops, and then we buy stuff. Now, with online purchasing being much more available, you have virtual environments, and you can go into the discussion about how AI is influencing our choices. Due to time limitations, I will not go into that discussion, because I could go on and talk about that for more than 1 hour. Just to keep in mind that AI is influencing our choices, and we can use AI to influence good behavior, or we can use it to encourage purchasing behavior, so unsustainable behavior, and so on. But going back to the physical environments and how design is actually influencing our behavior, you have here on the screen an example of, how the refrigerators are positioned in a space. And believe it or not, the refrigerator position and what we find in the refrigerator, whether we have healthy snacks or plastic bottles, that will influence our purchasing decision. Also, if you go to a grocery store, and then you see that fruits are much more easier to grab, you're much more likely to buy more fruits as snacks, for let's say, than you would be to buy something else. You can think about your own experience in going into a grocery store, where you have next to the cashier, you have like small stuff, either gum or any other things that you just take and you don't think about. You would say, well, maybe I need that. So that is, in a sense, influencing our purchasing behavior. Also, when you go to grocery stores or shops in general, and you have usually have the most expensive items at eye level, but if you look down or up, you would see that you have similar products, but maybe cheaper, and so on. So the point is that all these things are designed to influence our purchasing behavior. But if we use this to influence, well, sustainable behavior, that's also an alternative. So when we say, we can say that, well, you can, it's on the user to refuse that, but it's quite difficult to refuse or to resist when you have all sorts of environmental cues, buy one get one free, or all sorts of other um, elements that are influencing our decisions. Here's how we can use nudging, and that's actually, nudge is another way to say that we can use design to influence behavior, and obtain behavior for the good. You have an example about traffic lights and how the idea of a traffic light was used to influence healthy food choice in hospital cafeteria. You also have the Volkswagen behavioral initiative called the Fun Theory, trying to convince people to collect trash and throw it into the trash bin. And following their campaign, this particular trash bin managed to collect 72 kilograms of garbage in one day, which was 41% more than usual. You would say, collecting trash is not the aim here. We should try to reduce waste overall, right? If you are to be critical, but the idea is that we can use design to influence behavior for the good. I strongly recommend you look into the nudge theory by Thaler and Sustein, if I pronounced their name correctly. But also you can search online this on YouTube, the nudge theory, the fun theory, and you can see all sorts of videos and projects and pictures with things that can be done to kind of trigger positive behavior, sustainable behavior. And actually, this is also you're able to use it in any other situation, not only in sustainability. Other examples of the nudge, how to use the nudge theory, you have quiz bins done by an English environmental charity organization to kind of figure out people's opinions about some political polls. And then they used cigarettes, butt littering as a way to do that, and collecting butt cigarettes as well. You have the project in Greece. The idea was to use technology of 3D printing with raw material, recyclable plastic products to build public benches. So basically, you have all sorts of ideas. It's just understanding how design influences behavior. And the reason why I called it earlier like flawed environmental design is because very often designers tend to design these environments kind of forgetting how people are affected by the design. Going to the next kind of barrier. There's too much reliance on technology and on governments. I will not go individually on, technology and governments. They kind of go in the same bucket. The idea is that a lot of people think, oh, technology will save us, and there will surely be a solution to help us get out of this, plastic pollution and all sorts of other things. So even if people are aware that there we have an environmental problem, they might say, well, there someone will come up with something and we will be saved, or it's in the government's job to do that. I can't do anything. It's all for the government to fix. Forgetting that governments are made of people as well. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that debate, but just to understand that this kind of belief will kind of limit some people into taking action. I strongly recommend the book here if you want to know more about how, like, why we expect more from technology and less from each other. So how does technology influence our behavior? Um, so this book written by Sherry Turkle, Alone Together. I strongly recommend you look at it if you want to know more about this particular barrier. Another barrier that kind of comes between awareness and action is the what can I do by myself mentality. A lot of people feel like, I'm too small. How can I make a difference? I feel powerless. And then they don't see their part in the big system. And unfortunately, this goes back to our education systems because systems thinking mindset is missing. And it's actually missing not only in our education systems, it's missing in many areas, including business, the nonprofit sector, and so on. A lot of people don't see how their individual actions are connected to the broader system. You will see in business that you need to focus, but actually focus, in my opinion, is the enemy of systems thinking, because what focus does is to kind of distract the attention on how that particular thing, what you're doing at a particular time, is influencing other connects areas. So this is something that we need to understand and kind of work with. Another barrier that is in between being aware and taking action is what we call learned helplessness. This concept was proposed by Seligman, and it's actually quite common. You will see this in many situations. You would see it at work, you would see it at school for children, and including in sustainability, whether people do sustainable behaviors or not. And you can think about a situation at work where you have seen this learned helplessness in colleagues or with other people. And you might have felt this learned helplessness yourself. When does this happen? It usually happens when you've tried to do something or other people have tried to do something, and they get, they see that their results are, well, useless. Useless in the sense that, well, I've done something, it didn't work, it won't change anything. So people just stop doing that behavior. For example, why did I write generational gaps? You have young people going to to work, and they're very eager, and they want to put their ideas forward, and they might not be so experienced, but then what they usually tend to get as a response is from like older generations. Oh, you're too young, I'm much more experienced than you, just you have more things to learn, so I'll just not consider what you're talking about. So that's why actually younger people are constantly changing jobs, because they feel they don't get that amount of meaning that they would want from their work. They feel that their ideas are not valued, and so on. So it's a sense of it's an example of learned helplessness. A lot of people are feel, afraid of being mocked, but also just in general seeing one's actions invalidated by others. Maybe you have tried to recycle something, or and then you've seen the cleaning lady or the cleaning man in your office just doing the same things all over again, and then you felt like, well, no, there's no point. Also, you will see learned helplessness in like mostly generated by including our education systems. How many times have you felt, I'm just not good at learning math? I'm just not good at doing something. Because you've tried once, it didn't work, and maybe you feel it was your fault. However, the problem is that we all learn in different ways. We all do things in different ways. So we should adapt to that. And we should understand that the fact that we feel powerless, it doesn't mean that there's no solution, but that we either need to keep trying, or we need to understand what was the exact problem and how our choices, our actions were influenced. I could go on and talk about learned helplessness and how it affects us, but I'm happy to do that in a separate video. Now, another barrier that is very important to keep in mind, especially with globalization, especially with the information era where a lot of information is increasingly available, we need to understand that we have different understandings of climate change. I strongly recommend this book, Why We Disagree About Climate Change. It makes a very compelling point about the fact that climate change has different meanings in different cultures. We understand it differently. However, most of the research, most of the discourses about climate change have been done in English. So once you try to translate that into other languages, other cultures. Unfortunately, there's just a literal translation. Very often, there is the meaning behind it is not expressed entirely. So then, very often, that just leads to just talk and not direct implementation. And so, this is very important to consider to actually understand how what is people's connection to climate change? Are we really talking about the same things? And actually, research has shown that due to our differences in cultural backgrounds, we're not talking about the same thing, even though we might use the same language. The point is that we understand those words differently based on our backgrounds, cultural background, professional background, and so on. So this is an important issue to address if we want to kind of create a common language and actually drive behavior. Talking a bit about the meaning of behavior, there is a lot of text here, less pictures, but I wanted to just give some examples of what I mean by meaning of behavior. So, for example, if someone, let's say a lady, lives alone and is afraid of the darkness, then probably she will leave the light on for the whole day, going to work, coming back home, so that she can find the apartment lit, and this way she wouldn't be afraid. You can't blame this person for feeling afraid of the darkness, but the point is that her behavior, or his behavior, can be a man as well, is directly connected with sustainability as well. Another example, you might think of hot showers, right? Hot showers are extremely relaxing for many people, especially after a very stressful day. But what if a person lives in a very old building, having to wait maybe at the 5th floor, 6th floor, 10th floor, and you have to wait for a long time for hot water to come on tap, right? Should you be blamed for wanting to take a hot shower to relax? Maybe that's the only thing that relaxes you after a full day at work, right? So just blaming that person and forbidding that person to take a hot shower just because they live in a crappy apartment building, I don't think is necessarily the answer. What that will create is going into cognitive dissonance. And what cognitive dissonance does is to kind of, compensate. How cognitive dissonance says that our beliefs will trigger our behaviors, and then our behaviors need to be in line with our beliefs. However, if our behaviors need to change due to the context, and then our beliefs will follow. So in the case of hot showers, we might say, well, I am kind of wasting water, but then I didn't drive today. So, I've done my bit. So I am entitled to take a hot shower. So there's this kind of psychological process there, and we need to understand how like the mechanism behind it. So the point here is that creating the psychological pressure, telling users, oh, you need to do that, you need to do that, not understanding how our choices, our behaviors are influenced by the context, the environment in which we are in, is not helping at all. As a matter of fact, it's pushing people towards cognitive dissonance, and it's pushing people to find excuses for doing not so environmentally friendly behaviors. And we're so good at excuses. This is something that every person is very good at, and we need to accept that. That's very important. Another thing to look at, to consider actually, is the wording that we use for awareness campaigns. So we all talk about awareness, and there's a lot of work being done in the awareness area. However, the wording that we use will influence the understanding and perceptions of our audience. I did one study while I was studying my master's program, my environmental psychology master's program, about a um, campaign done in the Danube Delta, where I am originally from. What is important to remember here is that if we word our campaigns in a very negative way, we might actually discourage people and say we kind of send that message that there is no hope, right? So the original campaign The title of this campaign was Danube Delta, the almost lost paradise. So I guess the planners of this campaign wanted to raise an alarm sign saying, well, we need to do something. But what that created was just learned helplessness, feeling that we can't change anything. And as a matter of fact, there was data to show that this campaign was not very successful. So based on the academic research that I found at the time, my suggestion was, well, Danube Delta, our recovered paradise, and to kind of give people hope out there, we can do something about it, and then actually mention what we can do about it, to be more specific. Again, there's a lot of information here, and there's a lot of stuff going into neuro-linguistic programming. For time considerations, I will not talk about things like this here, but this is very important to consider, especially if you're someone working in the sustainability area. Now, looking at our next barrier, the disconnection between business and sustainability. This part is actually very linked to our environmental design, and so how businesses are created and how they're run and how they focus a lot on just consumer, consumer, consumer. And so I feel like there's this kind of clash. You have the business part who's kind of pushing for consumerism, but you have the environmentalists saying, well, no, no, you shouldn't buy so much. So there is a need to look at the environmental impact of a business once we are creating a business model, especially if you're an entrepreneur, for example. And unfortunately, now it's kind of changing a bit. But for a very long time, sustainability was not a criteria to be considered by an investor when looking to invest, unless the business was about solar panels or something related to recycling or whatever. However, the meaning of sustainability, I feel, is a bit misunderstood in this context. Also, most campaigns are run by charities and NGOs. So most sustainability campaigns are run by charities and NGOs. So there's this feeling that sustainability does not make money. There's this still feeling that sustainability is for hippies. So that is kind of not very attractive for the business world, let's say. It's getting more traction because of the urgency of some things, but still people are a bit are reluctant to change their mindset, and or maybe don't know how to do that, and so on. And the reason why I mentioned that the meaning of sustainability in itself is a bit misunderstood. Let's take charities, for example. They're not extremely sustainable because they rely on donations. So even though they might have great causes, want to create a lot of value, but what do you do when the donations are not there anymore? So you just have to stop the project. And there are so many causes out there. There are so many things too that can be done. And then a lot of people are like, well, we just don't have the money. So if you ask me, that is lack of sustainability. It's not sustainable. It can't sustain itself to create more value. Last but not least, the idea of NIMBY, not in my backyard. This is also very important to remember. And actually, not in my backyard is kind of influencing in two ways. One of the way is influencing is not connected with me. So, the polar bears, the ice caps are melting. So what does that have to do with me? Again, that missing systems thinking. A lot of people don't see the connection between the polar bears, ice melt, and their own like day-to-day kind of living, and the Amazon forest and so on. It's just people don't see the connection. The connection is not direct. So it's not like I eat sugar and then I'll get fat. I don't. The people don't see the immediate connection. So whenever we try to create that awareness, it is also very important to kind of link the dots and make the connection directly with people's lives. Otherwise, it's just awareness. It's just not enough. A second aspect of not in my backyard is kind of like this idea that others should be responsible. And so I really like this picture on the screen. Of course, we need shelters for homeless men, but it's just not anywhere near my house. So of course, we all know that we need to do good. We should decrease poverty, but I shouldn't be the one to do that. I'm sure that other people can do that, and it shouldn't be next to me. So this doesn't come from this is very important to remember. It doesn't come from being evil or being ill intentioned. We all have different biases, and until we start admitting these biases and start working with them, we're just the chances for us to change anything are very small. Well, after painting such a kind of, in a sense, negative image, I'll go to the hope part and then say there is hope, and there are ways to go about it. We just need to understand how to do that, and we need to understand what is our goal as well. Some things to remember, very important. If you don't remember anything else from this whole talk, at least remember this. Pretending that we're not human and that we're not affected by the environments that we live in and all the elements around us, and expecting to change without understanding how our choices are made is hypocrisy. And that's why change doesn't happen. That's why there's been a lot of awareness. A lot of people know, people have known about environmental issues 50 years ago, and we're still in this mess. And now you know what were the elements kind of triggering all these things. If you want to see some change in the world, be the change, right? Start with yourself. Also, design your products and services, your campaigns, everything, keeping humanity in mind. We're all human. We are susceptible to these flaws, and just pretending we're not, expecting to do things differently when we're human, will just not work. Now, I'll go ahead and give a brief intro also on some of the projects and services that my company came up with in trying to implement all this knowledge into getting actual behavioral change. So activating cognitive dissonance towards behavior and mindset change. We've developed an educational framework, I call it, where through the dynamics of either events or workshops, we create the behavior, and through the behavior, then mindset change happens and the behavior is changed as well. So people are kind of catching themselves that they can do that. And then their mentality changes as well. Oh, I can do that. Oh, I can change things, become more optimistic. And they actually, get engaged in the behavior. I will not go into too many details about the mechanisms of how it actually works, and why each stage is very important. But just so you know that this framework has been researched and prototyped and tested for the last 3 years, and it works. Another thing that we do, another solution that the Academy came up with, starting from this disconnection between business models and sustainability, one of the programs that the Academy delivers is based on the Atkinson Sustainability Compass, taking into account the SDGs as a tool and combined it with the strategizers business model canvas. So how do we actually, we should keep in mind all the aspects of our business, but to make our business profitable, but also to figure out how our business is influencing, or like how is our business tackling sustainability. And I'm not talking about being sustainable just by doing business with solar panels or recycling, for example, but just in the operation, the way to operate that business to be sustainable and kind of create value for the environment rather than damaging the environment. Another solution that we came up with, and this is actually a project still undergoing, it's still under development, helping to build sustainable businesses. So we call it the NGO to Social Entrepreneurship Pivoting Program. As I mentioned in the part about the disconnection between businesses and sustainability, I also mentioned that somehow I feel that sustainability's definition is misunderstood. So even if charities and NGOs have a good purpose, the way they use the money is not sustainable and always very reliant on donors. And what do you do if donors are not easy to find? If you don't have the money, does that mean that you shouldn't do what you're doing? So what the Academy proposes is to repurpose fundraising into an investment fund to assist NGOs to pivot to a social enterprise business model, become sustainable and financially viable, and create much more value with less money. Money is already a very limited resource, so why not maximizing the use of it? So at the same time, our company's profits also go to supporting this platform as well. A lot of people tend to think that profit, oh, you're doing a business for profit, so you're evil, so we should have a non-profit business. But actually, in my opinion, it's not the profit that is the problem, but is what do you do with it? If you use the profit to create more value, to give back to the community, to give back to society, I think having a business for profit is not a problem. It's actually good because that's what will make things move forward. Um, I will finish my talk here. If you want to explore more about how environmental psychology can help you, how all this knowledge can be adapted to your own situation, to your own project, to your own services, you're welcome to get in touch. You can either find me on LinkedIn by my name, Adina Daku, or you can follow our WeChat account. There's going to be a lot more articles there, trying to make a case for this need to be interconnected, cross-functional cooperation. This idea that we need to change mentalities, and we need to focus much more on designing environments that support the behavior that we want, that support the mindsets that we want, that support the choices that we want, and not necessarily pressure the learner, the user into, oh, you should be in a way or the other without knowing how our behaviors, mindset, and so on are influenced by the context or the environment. Thank you for watching so far. And hopefully we will be able to work together very soon.